to delete a couple of things. Sorry,
There
please
are
transfer
some
them over.
guardrails in that realm. We have to
Alright.
make sure that we're protecting our national
Let's see
security.
here.
We have to be
Keep on
clear-eyed
going.
that China isn't
This has
exactly
been one
playing
long round.
fair. They haven't followed the rules of the World
First
Trade
round ever.
Organization. They seem to
I
be
got
dumping things at below market
my
prices
base. I'm
around the
kicking
world.
back.
So
I got
auto
all the
sector,
gems.
beware when
All
we're
right.
talking about
Tons of
terms of
barrels.
trade there. But I think this is where the president
Alright.
sees greatest opportunity for progress, and probably rightly so.
Got it. Sir, thanks so much for joining
Anyways,
us on Globes. We appreciate it.
definitely
See you
winning.
again soon.
President Trump lands in Beijing for his first trip to China in almost 10 years. He's meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping for a two-day summit, and he's brought along with him a delegation of executives representing $12 trillion in American economic might. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Brian Bremberg, along with my co-host Taylor Riggs, Jerry Willis, Jackie DeAngelis, and with us for the hour, he's bad to the bone, but we call him Mr. Sunshine, goes to the founder and managing partner. Good to see you, sir.
Happy to be here.
All right. So what will it be? A massive trade reset, geopolitical deal-making, or another stalemate? Aisha Hasni is in Beijing with the latest. Hey there, Aisha.
Hey there, we'll find out soon enough because the president is going to get straight to work starting tomorrow, Beijing time. The president previewed for us what he's going to be talking with Xi about, and the first thing he says he's going to make a request is for Xi to open up China to some of these business leaders that are coming along with him, part of this big delegation of tech and business CEOs. He wants China to do business with them. He wants trade to be the topic of conversation coming out of this summit. But he also says he will have a long talk with Xi about Iran. He says he does not need China's intervention to get a deal with Iran, but he does note that it is China that stands to benefit the most from an open Strait of Hormuz because it gets a ton of oil from Iran. It is the biggest purchaser of the Iranian crude oil. Listen to this.
I have a great relationship with President Xi, and I think it's going to remain that way. We have a lot of things to discuss. I wouldn't say Iran is one of them, to be honest with you, because we have Iran very much under control. We're either going to make a deal or they're going to be decimated. So one way or the other, we win. We're going to be talking with President Xi about a lot of different things. I would say more than anything else will be trade.
Yeah, a lot of different things. It feels like everything under the sun is on the table. Everything from tariffs to artificial intelligence, chip production, the status of Taiwan, beef and soybean exports. Again, there's a large delegation of tech and business CEOs arriving here as well. According to Elon Musk, though, it was just him and the NVIDIA CEO,
NVIDIA.
Jensen
Why
Huang,
do they keep
who
on saying
were
NVIDIA?
riding
It's
along
NVIDIA.
with the president aboard Air Force One. The president, Truth Social,
NVIDIA.
aboard Air Force One a couple of hours ago, he said, I will be asking President Xi, a leader of extraordinary distinction, to open up China so that these brilliant people can work their magic and help bring the People's Republic to an even higher level. Now, we won't see the president anymore tonight, Beijing time. He's at his hotel for the night. We will see him early tomorrow when he heads to the Great Hall, and that is where he is going to be received by the president of China, Xi. Back to you.
All right, Aisha, we will watch all of it. Thank you very much. Okay, Murph, what do you want to see? Big trip, Wong on the plane, Musk on the plane, Trump, the other guys, I guess, had to find their own ride.
Commercial.
That's right, commercial.
So what I love about this, just from the jump here, is that President Trump is handling his own messaging. So he's setting the stage for who he's with, who he's bringing, why he's bringing them, and what he plans to speak to President Xi about. He's not going to let the media or anyone else set the stage for what's going to happen. He's telling us. So what do we come away from this with? Clearly, both men have to come out on top. The two most powerful men in the world. Neither one's going to give in necessarily, but I think President Trump's plan to have an open China is a win, yes, for China, but a bigger win for the United States and the rest of the world. If you had a more of a democracy, more capitalism in China, how does that help our economy? So I think there's a lot of upside here, and if he just plays it the way he set it out, I think it's going to be a win.
Okay, open China. I have some skepticism nice goal.
Yeah.
I don't know that they want to do that, but I do think they would love to have NVIDIA chips, and not the
Yeah,
second-rate
NVIDIA.
ones,
You said it right.
the first-rate ones. Do you think that's a big chip on the table in your prediction?
Yeah, chips are part of the chip negotiating table. I do like that. Comment I heard this morning, maybe we give them not the latest and greatest chips, but just like 6 months behind or a year behind. We talked to Daniel Newman yesterday, and I like that he was saying that we originally thought that chips depreciated in 6 months, and we're actually still using chips from 6 years ago. So if you give them chips from 6 months or a year ago, that may not be a bad thing. NVIDIA gets to benefit from it in the meantime, but they don't get the latest and greatest. And guess what? Yes, they'll reverse engineer, but we're always going to be a step ahead because we have, and I'll check your math on this, by my estimates,
Finally.
14.7 trillion in market cap going over there, given the hefty weight of our CEOs. With that brain power, I guess I'm not worried about us only having the latest and greatest and China only having maybe a version or two behind, because we will always outmove her, we will always outsmart, because we have the brain power. When China mints a billionaire, that billionaire disappears.
Yes.
You remember that story? And everyone's like, where did he go? Because Xi Jinping doesn't like billionaires. We embrace, for the most part, we embrace ours, unless I'm in California or a blue state. But we embrace them, and so I'm just so confident that we will always outmove her. I'm going to be looking at what I'm going to call the Beijing basket. That's going to be the traded market cap of chips, perhaps, of goods that are over there, given by those CEOs. If any deals are being cut with those companies, let's watch that as the Beijing basket and the new goods that will be sold.
Jackie, a lot of pomp and circumstance. Clearly, we saw when we broke in there the cheering for the president. What'd you think about that?
Well, we've seen these visits before, and Trump likes to make them big. Xi Jinping knows that he likes to make them big, so he made it big. And you could see the president walking off Air Force One with a smile on his face, entourage in tow, a couple of big CEOs with him, many more on the way. His power flex, as we called it yesterday. So it was kind of the perfect welcome. What was interesting to me is those kids that were all standing there, and they were chanting, "Welcome to the president." They had flags. They had a communist China flag, and they had an American flag. And they were waving them. And they were waving them, and I'm thinking to myself, those two symbols are so inherently antagonistic. Communism and capitalism are ideological opposites. So I appreciate what the president is trying to do. And I think that he will get something out of this visit. He never gets, a total turnover, but small wins are important here in the trade game with China. And I think he will accomplish that in this visit. But when you think about this, it's wild to me because, think about the Middle East and the Iranians using nuclear weapons and terrorism as their control tactic. They're not giving that up without a huge fight. Well, apply that concept to communist China. President Xi's control comes in this form of communism, and he is not going to give that up, open up any free market or whatever. He's going to try to get what he can from the United States, maybe give something, which is why I think he's been holding back on the agriculture side. That might be what he gives, because actually he owed that to us from almost 6 years ago now. And they do small trade-offs like that. But, ulterior motives in that welcome, read between the signs, people.
Jerry, you like to put things in historical context, which I always appreciate. I will just add, I think I was maybe a little surprised to hear how much President Trump downplayed Iran as an issue that he wants to hash out with Xi Jinping. What do you think?
Well, I think there are expectations out there that maybe China could help us with Iran, right? Because China relies on Iran for oil. As we know, it's critically important. But I want to go in the Wayback Machine. The Wayback Machine to China in 1997, Asian financial crisis. I think nobody on this panel, possibly with the exception of Mike, was working in the industry at the time. Were you?
Yeah.
Wow, you're big slow.
What about Murphy?
I said Murphy.
He hasn't aged well.
Yeah.
He's 85 years old. He was pretty.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You've already spiked him twice.
Twice.
Started the show.
Thank you for keeping count.
At any rate, what I wanted to say here is that the financial crisis, we can that Time magazine running this famous picture of, Robert Rubin, the Treasury Secretary, Larry Summers, his assistants, and Alan Greenspan on the cover. The committee to save the world. We organized the rescue of Asia at the time from financial crisis that threatened to swallow the entire globe. Do you think China would do the same thing if it were up to them? I'm not sure, and I'm not sure that they would help us with Iran, which could fix the problem if China climbed on board with us. Look, I think when it comes to China, we are relentlessly naive about the possibilities. China is China first, always.
President Trump is relentlessly naive on that one, or do you think, are you saying more like the broader political landscape?
When I talk to academics, were saying for decades, we've got to help China. China's in trouble. They're having issues. No, they're not having trouble. They're making their way for sure. And I think we need to be sure what we want out of these negotiations and go for it. I just say, don't be naive. We know where we've been before with China. They are running the world's pharmacy production, especially when it comes to generics. We know how this works. Don't be naive.
Speaking of lots of big names who are going to China, I don't think this is one of them, but you're looking at Oracle.
I am, and you are correct, not one of them. But I'm desperate for your thoughts on this. Wedbush goes from a $225 to a $275 price target on Oracle. Mike Murphy, this is what Wedbush has to say. The market is incorrectly penalizing the stock for their massive capex spend. The market is too focused on the near-term cash issues instead of recognizing some of the highly visible contract-based AI demand that is driving the build-out of which Oracle is involved. Agree or disagree?
Agree 100%.
Really?
Yes. Oracle came out with great earnings about 2 quarters ago. The stock had a huge rally. It put Larry Ellison as the richest man on earth for about a day. And then the private credit crisis kind of hit. And then there was a lot of discussions around whether or not Oracle would be solvent, whether they could pay their debt. And the stock came down into the low 100s. Where it's trading right now, 188, they have demand for their products. They're going to service their debt. So market cap here is still under $600 billion. So there's a lot of room for Oracle to grow here, to continue to move higher, because they have this contracted revenue out there. So I think once you fully get the concerns around their debt off the table, the stock's going to be a lot higher than 188.
Demand is better than debt is bad. I think that's what you're saying here.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go with it.
All right, there's President Trump live in Beijing at the state dinner, toasting Xi Jinping, talking about the strength of the two countries and their relationship. Of course, the headlines coming out of the day of meetings show the tensions behind this relationship, and of course, the tension being Taiwan. Joining me now to talk more about what we are watching and this historic situation playing out in front of us is the Gates Stone Institute Senior Fellow, Gordon Chang. And Gordon, we've got to highlight, it's not all, rainbows and puppy dogs here in terms of the two countries. Basically, Xi Jinping yesterday warned to the president not to get involved in the Taiwan situation and the reunification of Taiwan and China, as the two countries say that they're very warm and have great opportunities together. Your reaction?
I think it was very important for President Trump to say those words. The other thing, of course, was the invitation on September 24th, and that is going to be at a time when the United States is in midterm election mode. So it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of that. And that puts a lot of pressure on President Trump to deliver for the American people out of the China relationship. There have been a number of reports from the White House and from others, and it seems like the meetings are going well at this point. So we'll have to see until the final communique, but it appears that both leaders are getting along well.
Yes, they certainly are, and that's what we just watched on display with the champagne toast. Gordon, what do you make of the group that the president brought with him? These are largely all China-friendly executives, right? You talk about Apple, which has an enormous business in China, even if it has scaled back a bit. You've got Boeing, who, of course, wants more orders in terms of aerospace from China. You've got Tesla, which, of course, has an enormous business there as well. Your reaction to the group that the president brought along on Air Force One?
Yeah, I should have done this. Normally American presidents will bring CEOs, trips to China, but what it does is it weakens President Trump's bargaining position because it tells the Chinese that the U.S. really wants to do business. We know that Xi Jinping has pressured foreign business and especially American business, and we've seen this in various waves. In the last wave starting in March of 2023, basically China has pushed American business out, and it's criminalized the gathering of ordinary business information, making it very difficult for Americans to do business there. I think we should be decreasing the vulnerability of American business to China, not increasing it, especially until Xi Jinping pivots and opens the door more to foreign business.
Well, I don't know. I have to push back on that. I mean, President Trump is a deal man. He wants to do a deal on business, and he's probably using those CEOs to distract and do exactly what you're saying, and that is let Xi Jinping think about the business opportunities at hand, while also angling for whatever the president really wants, which I think is that the president wants Xi Jinping to buy oil from the United States. I mean, this Strait of Hormuz situation is the biggest situation this president has faced at this point, and it's happening just a couple of months before the midterm elections, where affordability was the leading headline. And so we're talking about affordability going into the midterms, where the president could be actually, the Republicans could lose the majority in the House and then stall the president's agenda, and you've got oil prices at 101, right? And so I think the president is probably trying to get a win here. What would be a win? What would he, do you think, get if he, in your view, what is a win for the president at this meeting? What do you want him to walk home with?
I think the most important thing would be an extension of the trade truce that President Trump and Xi Jinping negotiated in October in South Korea. Getting China out of the Iran war in the sense of not supporting Iran with weapon sales and with other sales, so that would be important as well. I'd like to see President Trump obtain the release of Jimmy Lai. That is going to be a big win because Lai is a hero of freedom, and he's languishing in a jail in Hong Kong, and he shouldn't be there.
Yeah, and that did come up, by the way. But Gordon, the New York Times is reporting that Chinese companies have discussed a weapons sale with Iran, sending them through other countries to mask any military aid from the U.S. I mean, we've reported on this many times that China has supported Iran, aided Iran in military defense, whether it's through components or weapons or whatever. And, President Trump broke the news in our interview just 2.5 weeks ago that he sent Xi Jinping a letter saying, do not support Iran in this war. And then Xi Jinping sent him a letter back saying, we're not supporting the war. So we still don't have an admission from the Chinese that, in fact, it was and is aiding Iran.
Yes, but we do know that it is. Those anti-ship cruise missiles that Iran fired at the USS Abraham Lincoln and the Carrier Strike Group, those were China's CM-302s. President Trump said they sent 101 of them. Now, fortunately, all of those missiles failed. They were either diverted or they fell into the water. But that is significant from our perspective. I think that it's going to take some pressure from President Trump. I think he'll be able to get China to stop those sales because this is so critical to the U.S. And on those oil sales, I think China did agree to buy U.S. oil. From what we can tell from the White House statement, that is consistent with what we know about what the Chinese need at this moment, because the oil shock in the Chinese economy is significant.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a big deal because, of course, China will have to pay market prices in terms of buying U.S. oil and gas. China was buying 90% of Iran's oil, and they were paying for it with the yuan. And if China commits to buying oil from the United States, it will be paying market prices like everybody else. Here's a really interesting quote for you from Xi Jinping at the podium a minute ago, Gordon. He says, Taiwan independence and cross-strait peace are as irreconcilable as fire and water, Gordon.
Well, the Chinese talk about their principled diplomacy and their red lines, and Taiwan being the most critical red line. But China does not have red lines in reality. Their red lines depend on what they think their bargaining position is at any So everything is up for negotiation. The Chinese are just trying to intimidate us with
Yeah.
those words. President Trump is not intimidated, and we can see this not only in his first term, but his second term as well. And clearly, the United States is not changing its policy, as a White House official privately told a news source in the last
Yeah.
24 hours. That's very good from our perspective.
Absolutely. And of course, while Xi is pushing his commentary and his pressure on Taiwan, President Trump is talking about trade. And there were reports that they held talks on specifics in terms of constructive talks in South Korea, even before this meeting in Beijing. But China is expected to purchase more Boeing planes. They are expected to buy more soybeans and agriculture. As we mentioned, energy. In exchange for relaxed export controls on semiconductors and rare earth minerals. Look, the rare earth mineral situation was very, very critical going into this meeting before the Iran war, right? Because China was holding back rare earths, not just for the United States, but for the world. China understands that they have a dominant position on these rare earth minerals and magnets that the U.S. needs for its military. I don't know that it's going to be able to bully everybody about these rare earths anymore when now the president has done what he's done in terms of energy, from Venezuela, Iran to Cuba. I think that in and of itself gives the president the upper hand here. What do you think?
Oh, yes. I mean, overall, President Trump came into Beijing holding high cards. And one of them is just oil, as we talked about, and food, because the United States is self-sufficient in both energy and food, and China is not. And with regard to the rare earth near monopoly that China has,
Yeah,
yes, it does give it leverage, but President Trump has been working really hard to make sure that we can develop alternatives, that we mine, we process, and we develop the technologies that make rare earths less important. And, in a year or two, maybe 18 months, I think that we won't be talking about China's near monopoly anymore. And I
Yeah,
think Xi
that's
Jinping understands that as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now that the president has accelerated this return to America supply chain mode, you've got a number of rare earth producers now doing business in Texas, in other areas across the country to excavate those rare earths here. We have them as well. We just need the refining process as well. The top business leaders, along with President Trump, at that dinner right now that we were just looking at live pictures, NVIDIA's Jensen Huang, Apple's Tim Cook, Elon Musk, they want to expand China's technology market, Gordon. And I wonder what that means and what that looks like for the United States. I understand the president wants to do lots of business, but this friction that is underway in Silicon Valley, where Jensen Huang wants to send chips to China, he wants the business. But Anthropic and others, Dario Modi from Anthropic says we should not be sending any chips to China because this is a national security issue and we are that close when it comes to AI. We need to win this. We can't give them any advantage from American chips.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
This was really highlighted by DeepSeek last year. On January 20, they issued their R1 model. They shook the world. They took trillions of market value off American companies, including NVIDIA. And yet, in the middle of last year, DeepSeek said that it couldn't come out with its R2 model because it was forced to rely on Huawei's Ascend chip and that they really needed America's chips. And that's a real indication that China can't compete with the United States on AI unless they have access to America's microchips, because that's where our lead is. That's important for us. And I couldn't agree more that we should not be selling advanced chips to China. I actually think we shouldn't be selling any chips, but that's a broader question. But certainly not the advanced chips. There's the issue of the H200s. The United States says it's going to sell them, but I don't know if the Chinese are going to buy them. They want the Blackwell chips.
That's right. The Blackwells are the most advanced, and the president has said no Blackwell chips to China. We'll see if that changes on this trip, but the president said that even before this trip. Gordon, great to get your insights on, as we watch this historic meeting underway in Beijing. Thank you so much. Gordon Chang joining us. We'll slip in a short break and come right back and continue our live coverage of President Trump's summit in Beijing. Back in a minute.
Well, President Trump wrapping up his first day of meetings with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and the deals are already coming.
On behalf of all of the great delegation that we have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, and guess the best in the world. We have amazing people, and they're all with me. Every single one of them, and they're here today to pay respects to you and to China, and they look forward to trade and doing business, and it's going to be totally reciprocal on our behalf.
Xi telling American CEOs and the president that China will open its door wider to U.S. businesses, and it's already begun. The U.S. reportedly just cleared more NVIDIA chip sales, and Trump says China will buy 200 Boeing jets. As for Iran, the two sides agreed Tehran can't control the Strait of Hormuz. The White House says Xi is now considering buying more U.S. energy.
President Xi would like to see a little more. He would like to see a little more. And he did offer, he said, if I can be of any help at all, I would like to be of help.
He did say that.
Yeah, he did say that. And look, anybody that buys that much oil has obviously got some kind of a relationship with him. But he said, I would love to be of help. If I can be of any help whatsoever, he'd like to see the Hormuz Strait open.
Well, Deroy, it sounds pretty cordial around those parts, and apparently there's some deal-making happening. But are you happy to hear that?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing when the President of the States and the leader of the second biggest economy in the world are getting along well and not beating the hell out of each other. I think it's a lot warmer and friendlier and more cheerful than expected. I saw as the President arrived, he had all these little Chinese kids jumping up and down, waving flags, jumping up and down a lot. They're probably exhausted by now. But it's good also to see Xi Jinping say that he agrees with President Trump that Iran may not have an atomic weapon. I'd like to see him follow through with that by saying that to the Iranians and any Ayatollahs who are still alive he can talk to, we're not going to provide you any weapons. You need to sit down with the President of the States and come up with some sort of a peace agreement. And as I've said about 6 weeks ago on this very set, I think one of the things that can be very helpful is for the Chinese to send warships into the Strait of Hormuz along with the U.S., with our NATO allies, etc., and open the Strait of Hormuz, get those ships out. I mean, those sailors, some of them they're practically starving. They've not had any food or any movement there in weeks. China gets most of its petroleum and gas through the Strait of Hormuz. It's very much in their national interest to do that. It would be very helpful for them to come in and help us out with that effort.
Well, I just would note, I don't know if when China moves warships in, if they move them out real quickly, but we could discuss that if others at the table want to.
They might stay, which would be a problem, but hopefully they can move.
Maybe.
That's the problem.
So here's, Taylor, I've been wanting to ask you this question since the first hour when we were talking about Mythos, we were talking about deals. We got the NVIDIA chip deal. Now, I know it's for H200s, which are not the Cadillac chip. It's more the Buick chip, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
Is that lower quality?
Yes, it's a little lower end. Buicks are fine. Okay, so we got the deal. But we had this conversation about, how should we feel about AI? And do we fear it? Is it helpful to us? And I don't know where we landed, but we were kind of talking about, well, it kind of depends who's deploying it and for what purposes. And I just wonder, do you love technology deal making with China that gives them chips to keep moving forward on AI?
I do. I have this probably horrible, endless optimism that even if they get the H200s and they try to do it, I just believe in our capitalist system that we can out-innovate China, always. I mean, you heard Trump there. He brought in, I don't know, estimates from $12 to $15 trillion in market cap just by the 10 to 15 guys sitting behind him. That's half of our economy. Just like there. So if you're telling me that those guys, our best and brightest, can outsmart China, I guess that's where maybe I'm too of an optimist, where I think, yes, AI is powerful, and yes, their version of the mythos could be horrible, but I guess I just believe that we can always out-innovate and that we can always win and out-maneuver, because capitalism inevitably will move faster than communism. A couple things as well, just on sort of that AI. I mean, you talked about that, Brian, the H200s. We have to see if they actually want to follow through with that. You guys, TSMC thinks that this is going to be a $1.5 trillion market now by 2030. So if those companies want sort of access to the market, I think that's where we're going to have to do some deal making with China, because they're going to get their access, their hands on it anyway. So why not let those American companies benefit from it, or in TSMC's case, a Taiwanese company? Plus, Lawrence Simonetti's latest email is
I
coming
read
through.
those at 2:15 a.m. after I check the 2-year
After you
Treasury.
check the bond yields, she's saying that it looks
Oh
almost
shit.
full. Iran's storage capacity looks tight, tight, tight. We're almost there.
Okay.
So as we're thinking about economic maneuvering with Iran, there's sort of another piece to the puzzle.
You want in on the debate about chips, technology, AI in China, deal making?
Well, I wonder because has been reporting that that Iran and China were opening rail transportation more so.
Heard about that.
This was probably 10 days ago. So, okay, the oil storage is near full.
Shit.
But are they able to send oil on tankers?
Can be done.
Right, to China
Hopefully
and
it's
parts
like
unknown.
California's train and it's not up yet.
No, the train line exists.
Oh, they know how to do them. And
The train line, there's a rail line that exists. It just they're running
Bro.
more trips on said rail line.
No.
And
No.
this is gonna focus
Oh,
on
thank God I forgot I had the revive.
policy, even starting in
dude.
his first term.
Dude.
With Iran and Russia, Ukraine, our ability to manufacture cheap drones at volume is a weakness. That
Frozen fruit.
if you look at
70,
the
that's
gains,
awesome.
like Iran, what it was able to do and is able to do with drones, Ukraine still in the fight against Russia because of, or Russia's having trouble defeating Ukraine because of drones. Will we, the United States, ever be able to produce the volume of inexpensive drones that China can? And would we be able to defend ourselves or an entity, an island or a nation, against a drone storm when we don't have a solution against a country that can create and build drones at that capacity?
you could go drones if you want to on that one. You could go oil and whether they're running out of tanker capacity, or we could talk a little bit more about this chip sale thing. And like, do we love that China's getting our stuff? Do we trust them that the deal making is going to work out as well for us as it might work out for them?
And I hit a few of those
Hit 'em
by
all.
going to this,
Go through them.
but through this other avenue of President Trump asking them to open up, right? They're a communist country. They have come a long way in, say, the last 30 years. I saw pictures this morning of our correspondents in Beijing and anchors that are reporting there, and the city looks completely different than it looked when I was there 30 years ago. So they have come a long way, but to maintain their control, they still will have to keep the fundamental pieces of their structure in place. So I think they're gonna open up as much as they can, but they're not gonna do full opening, which actually would benefit their people and growth for the country. You know, they don't have gangbuster growth anymore, and actually they've sort of fallen apart upon hard times. And without innovation and without being able to have an industry that will allow them to grow, AI is doing that for us, they're gonna be stuck. But I'm just sort of wondering how their system, like Xi Jinping wants to rule the world, okay? How are you going to do that under this structure? He's trying to change it as much as he can, but fundamentally, unless you could just completely flip the apple cart over, you just can't do it. So I just find that tension very interesting. You're nodding.
Yeah.
Sure. On the AI piece, there was a really good piece that the New York Post ran. I picked it up from the Spectator, and it was on how much China engages in theft of our AI technology. And it isn't just breaking in and grabbing some chips and running out the door. Very clever stuff. Apparently, they'll set up chatbots, like 1,000 of them. They'll go in and go ask questions and query a particular AI program, and somehow or another learn from the way it answers 1,000 different queries, how it operates, and so on. It's very, very subtle, very sophisticated. So I hope as part of the discussions with Xi Jinping that President Trump tells him to knock this off.
You know, we talked to Victor Davis Hanson yesterday, and he makes this really interesting point about comparing China and Russia and the way that we engaged the Soviets during the Cold War and the way we engage China now. And he just makes the observation that we are so much more integrated with our greatest adversary now than we ever were with our great adversary then. And maybe you could say China's different than the Soviets, but he would argue fundamentally, I don't think so. They're both communists. And so it was interesting to hear his skepticism of wanting to do deals with China right now that he believes just are not going to work out in a reciprocal way. I wonder if that's something we've generationally, because the Cold War is so far in the rearview mirror, we've actually lost the ability to think that way. Thoughts on that?
No, that's a great point. But how do we uncouple? We can't. I mean, we can, but that's painful. So we've tried the onshoring and the nearshoring. We tried the tariff thing. So we're going to have to then learn the hard way. As Jason said, we tried opening up them in the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and that's how we got here today. So we're going to it's not a good answer, but
it's a big question to ask at the end of a block, but I do think in the context of these negotiations, it's worth pondering how has our cultural position changed with regard to China compared to where we were as a culture. And he makes the point that Democrats were a Democrat vis-a-vis the Soviet Union is so different than a Democrat now.
Oh, yeah.
Vis-a-vis China. And he says that's one of our big political weaknesses, actually.
That definitely was a big difference. Having lived through the Cold War, a lot of Democrats who weren't great on taxes and spending were very good about, okay, we have to oppose communism, bring down the wall, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing is, I can't remember any significant product we relied on for the Soviet Union. I mean, we didn't get anything from there.
Right.
Versus China, you go to a store, everything is made in China. So we're decoupling, as you say, we long, difficult, and painful. We weren't coupled with the Soviets back during the Cold War.
We've long treated the Soviet Union and the USSR as a threat to not just our way of life, to our lives.
Absolutely.
And a grave threat to the American experiment. We've never treated China appropriately as the appropriate enemy and adversary. Is it enough that they stole the livelihoods and futures of certainly everybody I grew up with in my community? It was just wiped out by the companies that ship jobs overseas in exchange. Folks got to go work at Walmart or buy cheap inflatable crap from Walmart that we could put in our front yards. And then they unleashed a virus on the United States and killed more than 1.2 million Americans. And we haven't done anything about that either. We just keep sitting back.
I think it's going to come to blows the way the Iran issue has finally come to the surface after 47 years. It could be 30 years. It could be 50 years with China. You're going to have to face it head on. But nobody wants to. Right now, still diplomacy seems to be the answer.
Well, it's still face-to-face conversations right now, but you never know what might come from those.
First of all, what did Trump get out of this meeting? And then tell me what Xi got out of this meeting.
It's very early days. You know, Stuart, most summits are canned, everything decided in advance. This one actually had substantive discussions. And we'll only know how this summit came out as these agreements, if they are there, are actually announced. And we know that by September 24th, we'll probably hear everything because that's when Xi Jinping is scheduled to come to the United States. But we did learn something important, and that is Xi Jinping is incredibly arrogant. Twice on Thursday, he made references to suggest the United States was either a declining power or a power that was no longer needed to be considered by China. This was incredibly, I think, corrosive. There was a message on the Thucydides trap, and there was his phrase on new era, which is Xi Jinping's speak for the United States is out of the picture. So I think that President Trump needs to respond to that.
So Xi got out of it. What Xi got out of it was he was standing next to the world's superpower almost as an equal, and that was for domestic consumption. You go along with that?
Oh, yes, of course. And to boot, he insulted the President of the United States to his face. And the Chinese people know that. And so that certainly bolsters the Communist Party standing at home. And we're going to hear a lot of Chinese propaganda in the weeks ahead about how that occurred. So, yes, that's a very important win for Xi Jinping. Now, President Trump is Trump. He can reverse that easily, and I hope that he will do that.
Xi told Trump that if the Taiwan issue were handled poorly, it could trigger clashes and conflicts between the US and China. Has there been any change in Taiwan policy?
Well, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said no. You know, this is Xi Jinping talk. It's traditional Chinese diplomacy that goes back millennia to intimidate the foreigners. The Chinese military right now is not capable of launching hostilities with an invasion of the main island of Taiwan.
Why isn't
And I think that's part of the reason why we heard Xi Jinping be so blunt about this in public, because he knows he can't do it, and he's trying to get the United States not to sell arms to Taiwan. This would be the perfect time to do that, because the Chinese are not able to go after Taiwan in the way that we're fearful of. So to reestablish deterrence, I think we need to go forward to those arms sales and sell Taiwan whatever it wants.
Okay, we'll find out if that's going to happen a bit later on. Gordon Chang, thank you very much, sir. I'll see you again real soon.
kicking butt. All of this solo. Saved all the kids. And I could go underground. The whole thing. Make night shorter. Make this a lot easier. Could do that. Less rain or less. What do I do next? What was I doing? The tree. It's on the tree. What haven't I done? No bandages. Cake does actually heal you, which is pretty funny. That does that. A444. That's pretty funny. Japan. It'd be like, oh, scary. What's happening?
first learned that Christopher Nolan was making an adaptation of The Odyssey, there was perhaps reason for optimism, if you happen to be an optimistic sort of person. Nolan has made some mistakes in his career. Tenet was one of the most convoluted films ever made. Interstellar had one too many bloated Hallmark-style monologues from Anne Hathaway preaching about the universal power of love or whatever, but he's still unquestionably one of the most talented living filmmakers, and The Odyssey is one of the foundational works of Western literature. It's a heroic epic with very obvious themes of masculinity, patriarchy, daring, discovery, mortality. Nolan has proven he can tackle epic, sweeping projects in the past, and because Hollywood has somewhat retreated from the racial depravity of the Cultural Revolution of 2020, or so we thought, it was reasonable to hope that Nolan would be faithful to Homer's original story and produce a worthwhile film. Then the trailers arrived, and we'll start with the one that came out several months ago. Watch.
After years of war, promise me you will come back. What if I can't?
Promise me you'll come back. What if I can't? Now,
Never said.
this might be splitting hairs, but it's worrisome if this is the kind of dialogue they're going to highlight in the trailer. It sounds like a conversation you might have with the receptionist at your dentist when she's scheduling your 6-month checkup. It's kind of flat, it's bland. It's definitely nothing like the dialogue in The Odyssey. It doesn't sound like people in ancient Greece. But the more you watch this trailer, the more you notice some other problems. There's the cheap-looking armor in the beginning, which looks like it was created with a 3D printer. Put aside the fact, for now, that they didn't actually have armor that looked like this back in the Bronze Age. Just look at this side-by-side comparison. You have the armor in the 2004 movie Troy with the armor that they're using in The Odyssey. And you can see it there. It's pretty obvious downgrade, in my opinion. Whatever material Nolan's using, it looks noticeably cheap and fake, so that's another red flag. Again, not the kind of thing that means the movie will be a disaster, but it makes you wonder what's going on. Then you get into bigger issues. And at the outset, I'll mention that I'm not an expert on Homer, but I can say with a high degree of certainty that despite my lack of expertise, there are, when you take all the factors together that we'll discuss, really only two possibilities. Either I somehow know a lot more about the topic than Christopher Nolan, which seems unlikely, or Christopher Nolan is deliberately bastardizing The Odyssey. First of all, the tone is not right. The Iliad is supposed to be the gritty wartime epic from Homer. On the other hand, The Odyssey is more of a grand, sweeping adventure story, though also, of course, dealing with serious themes. But there's more flowery language, there's strange creatures and adventures. People get turned into pigs, Poseidon causes the ships to wreck. And so on. Now, with this trailer, it looks kind of like Nolan isn't so much giving us a fantasy epic with a vibrant color palette, but rather a gritty, dimly lit, self-serious action thriller. Because, for one thing, every major movie made today is dimly lit for reasons that no one's ever been able to explain. There's no good reasons. Nolan's sort of applying the Batman approach where it doesn't belong. You half expect to see the Joker show up when you watch the trailer. This is yet another Hollywood blockbuster where everything needs to be dark and brooding and intense and, like I said, dark, like actually dark, lit in a, in terms of how it's lit. It would have been much more interesting if Nolan had embraced the vibe of the actual epic poem, which is what the 1954 adaptation did. Take a look at this here. Now, from this one photo, you can tell that they understand at least the tone that a film based on the Odyssey should have. And there's actually some color. Did you know you can have color in movies? Modern directors don't realize this. You're allowed to have color. That's okay. There's no law saying you're not allowed to have any kind of color or actually fully light a scene. You're allowed to do that, as far as I know. So So it feels tonally off, which is what a lot of viewers have picked up on. And as the trailers kept coming, the situation started to look even worse. So here's the most recent trailer that really has set off some alarm bells for a lot of viewers. Watch.
What would he do if he came back here and find all these suitors in his house?
They're pining for a daddy. You didn't even know. Like some sniffling bastard.
Who's looking after your wife and son?
Do you see?
My dad is coming home.
Bringing vengeance. Bringing it all. I think it's asleep.
Well, there's some more award-winning dialogue for you. Odysseus says, "Let's go." That's what they went with for this big, epic moment where he's leading the charge. Let's go. Now, again, I know it sounds like splitting hairs, but this is not how people in the ancient Greek world, many centuries before Christ, would have communicated. And I don't just mean because of that they're speaking English. Okay, I'll forgive that part. I don't think that every director has to go full Mel Gibson and actually do the film in the language that they spoke, although I certainly respect that strategy. But they're speaking English, fine. But the English that they're speaking should capture the spirit of the time period. Now, if you're making a movie where a high school quarterback runs onto the field for the big game against the school's hated rival, then it makes sense to have him shout, "Let's go." But it doesn't work for a depiction of an ancient battle based on one of the greatest works of literature of all time. There's no excuse for it because because the Odyssey is full of beautiful dialogue where he's exhorting and encouraging his men. I'm not saying Nolan needs to use those exact words, but he should at least try to capture again the spirit. Homer has this famous passage, "Friends, we are not unacquainted with evils. This present evil is no greater than when the Cyclops penned us in his hollow cave by force of his strong hands. Yet even from there we escaped." That sounds like something a person might have said back then, or at least it sounds like something that a person might have said in a story back then. But Nolan has boiled all that down to, "Let's go." Calling it generic would be a rather considerable understatement. And then there's the use of the word daddy in the trailer, as well as the fact that the son of Odysseus says, quote, "My dad is coming home." Yes, my dad is coming home. Now, putting aside the fact that Tom Holland is a 29-year-old actor talking like he's a 7-year-old anticipating his dad's return from a 2-week business trip to Cleveland, again, it's dialogue that could be used in a million different movies. It's generic, and it rips the soul out of the Odyssey and makes it much less specific and unique, almost as if that's the whole point. For comparison, here's some dialogue from the 2004 movie Troy, which incidentally Nolan was originally supposed to direct. Watch.
The gods envy us. They envy us because we're mortal. Because any moment might be our last. Everything's more beautiful because we're doomed. You will never be lovelier than you are now. We will never be here again.
Now, if Nolan were directing this scene, Brad Pitt would just tell her, "Let's go," and then she'd go. And what's funny about this comparison is that at the time, Troy was not a particularly special film. It was a fine movie, in my opinion, a little uneven, but fun to watch. I admit I have trouble with Brad Pitt playing an ancient person. He's a good actor, but ultimately he looks and sounds like a guy named Brad. So if you put him in any story set before like 1960, it tends to break the fourth wall. But ironically, though that film was not really trying to be a prestige drama, it'll probably wind up being far more historically accurate and much better written than Nolan's Oscar bait. And in 2004, when that movie came out, we didn't realize that within the span of a decade, Hollywood would completely forget how to make, or refuse to make, good historical films. In the case of The Odyssey, it's not hard to diagnose the specific problem. Nolan set out to subvert a classic, to bludgeon a monumental story with flat writing and incoherent creative decisions, along with the modern mandates of feminism, transgenderism, and anti-whiteism. This is the approach that now defines Hollywood. They're running roughshod like a Mongol horde over every classic they can get their hands on. And the first sign that something would go very wrong with this particular production was the revelation that Nolan would be relying on the 2017 translation of the Odyssey that was written by this woman. We'll put her up on the screen. Oh yeah, that's the kind of person we want translating the Odyssey. Her name is Emily Wilson, and Nolan had cited her translation in several interviews. And without knowing anything about her, you can tell just from the photograph that she produced an atrocious and completely unnecessary translation of the Odyssey. This is the look of a Portland barista who likes to spend her weekend at a No Kings rally with her grandmother. And indeed, if you read her translation, you'll quickly discover that her intent was to rewrite the poem in order to change the meaning of Homer's words in order to invert and hollow out the central themes of the Odyssey. She also wanted to flatten the dialogue. She took something ancient and rich and vibrant and ran it through a kind of liberal HR-approved translator to produce something bland and, not problematic by modern leftist standards.
What the?
For what it's worth, there's another female writer who wrote Song of Achilles, which apparently made Achilles gay. Now, first of all, before we talk about Emily Wilson, I have to make the point that a translation of the Odyssey shouldn't really be necessary for this film in the first place. Christopher Nolan will easily make at least $100 million on this film, since he typically gets 20% of the gross ticket sales plus $20 million up front. It's an enormous amount of money, obviously, and for that kind of cash, you could have just read the Odyssey in the original Greek, or at least he should be able to read the key parts of it. I mean, high school students do that, and they're not even paid $100 million for their trouble. I spent about 5 minutes online, and I found plenty of resources that help you read the original poem. There are guides with all the vocabulary words you need. You can even get an online tutor if you want. Given a few months, anyone can become familiar enough with ancient Greek to read the most important moments in the Odyssey, and that's more than enough time in this context. I mean, we're being told that for this film, Matt Damon spent an entire year growing out his beard, which is a pretty long time to grow out a not terribly impressive beard, but whatever. Christopher Nolan supposedly wanted the authenticity of real non-wigged hair on the screen. So if the production could wait for real non-wigged hair in the name of authenticity, then they had the time for Nolan to read the poem in its original language. If he had done that, he'd get a much better sense of the poem's tone, its themes, its characters, all of which he clearly butchered in his adaptation. But even if you don't mind the fact that Nolan was kind of lazy, relied on a translator, the fact that he picked this particular translator is really unforgivable. Emily Wilson has gone on record in multiple interviews and the preface of her translation, stating that Odysseus, the hero of the poem, is, quote, problematic. That's the actual word she chooses again and again, using the language of a disappointed 26-year-old gender studies grad when she's scrolling through social media posts she doesn't like. This hero is problematic. This is how the New Yorker reported on Emily Wilson's perspective a couple of years ago. Quote, previous translators have called Odysseus shifty, cunning, and 100 other things. After grappling with the alternatives, Wilson chose complicated, hoping also to convey the sense of problematic. The first sentence, tell me about a complicated man, instantly makes him our familiar, charismatic prince who's too impossible to live with and too desirable to live without. Now, the moment Christopher Nolan saw this, he should have ensured that this woman had nothing to do with the project. There is a vast difference between a hero who's cunning and a hero who's problematic, or even complicated. Someone who's cunning might, say, come up with an idea of sending a wooden horse to the gates of Troy and tricking them into thinking it's a gift, or it's really occupied by an invasion force. That's a cunning hero, right? On the other hand, a problematic hero is one who, I don't know, uses the N-word a lot with the hard R. I'm not sure if we're going to see that in this film. So what Emily Wilson is doing is cheapening the language, and by extension, she's undermining the character. And instead of wasting any time with Emily Wilson, Nolan could have used Robert Fitzgerald's translation, which has been around for decades. It's the gold standard. And just from a glance, you can tell it's infinitely better than Wilson's. So here's how Fitzgerald's translation begins, just to give you an idea. It says, "Sing in me, muse, and through me tell the story of that man skilled in all ways of contending, the wanderer, harried for years on end, after he plundered the stronghold on the proud height of Troy. He saw the townlands and learned the minds of many distant men, and weathered many bitter nights and days in his deep heart at sea, where he fought only to save his life, to bring his shipmates home. But not by will nor valor could he save them, for their recklessness destroyed them all. Children and fools they killed and feasted on the cattle of Lord Helios, the sun. He who moves all day through heaven took from them their eyes the dawn of their return. Of these adventure, Muse, daughter of Zeus, tell us in our time, lift the great song again." Now with that in mind, here's how Emily Wilson handled that same passage.
Bro,
And as you listen to this page,
why does that keep happening?
just sort of bland
Why?
everything sounds by comparison. So, quote, "Tell me about a complicated man." I mean, already we've gone off the rails. "Tell me about a complicated man. Muse, tell me how he wandered and was lost when he had wrecked the holy town of Troy, and where he went and who he met, the pain he suffered on the sea, and how he worked to save his life and bring his men back home. He failed, and for their own mistakes they died. He ate the sun god's cattle, and the god kept them from home. Now, goddess, child of Zeus, tell the old story for our modern times. Find the beginning." So it's a version specifically written to strip away everything sort of beautiful and flowery and evocative in the language to make it sound like something that ChatGPT could have spit out. So to recap, in the Fitzgerald version, Odysseus was skilled. He plundered a stronghold. He weathered many bitter nights. And though he tried to save his companions with valor, their recklessness prevented him from doing so. But in Emily Wilson's version, Odysseus was complicated and lost. He suffered on sea. He failed to save his friends. It's an old story, not an adventure or a great song. Now, it's not hard to see what Wilson set out to accomplish here. The only reason her translation exists is to neutralize the significance of the Odyssey. She wants to destroy the significance of an epic that's unapologetically masculine, because in 2026, men, particularly white men from Europe and their descendants, simply cannot be heroic figures. So by using Emily Wilson's translation as his foundation, Christopher Nolan is doing the exact same thing. He's made sure that the dialogue in his version of the Odyssey is just as generic, while also undermining the themes of masculinity in the original poem. Most men don't want fashion advice. They want clothes that look good, fit properly, and don't make them look ridiculous. They want a wardrobe that works. Mack Weldon makes this possible. Their Primus shirts are simple, clean, and comfortable, available in all sorts of different colors and cuts, like crew necks, Henleys, and V-necks, the kind of shirts you can wear around the house, out to dinner, on a flight, or to work without looking underdressed or overstyled. And Mack Weldon has built out the rest of the wardrobe the same way. If you're traveling this summer or just trying to stop dressing like you're in college, Mack Weldon has linen pants, lightweight shirts, and drawstring shorts that look sharp. They even make solid bags and travel essentials that are built to last. The appeal is that everything is straightforward. Good material, clean fit, comfortable without looking sloppy. It's really all that most men want. Get moving with Mack Weldon. Comfortable anywhere. Go to MackWeldon.com and get 20% off your first order of $125 or more with promo code Walsh. That's MackWeldon.com, code Walsh. But I don't want to make it sound like Nolan is only trying to emasculate the Odyssey. He's also trying to remove as much of the Greek and Mediterranean influence and character as he possibly can. You see, Greeks are white, and white people are bad. And so this is from Time Magazine's glowing new profile of Nolan. Quote, "Nolan has also studied the text and made several striking adaptation choices. Argos, Odysseus' loyal dog, has been promoted from a cameo to a bit player. Odysseus and his son, played by Tom Holland, burdened by the legend of a father he doesn't remember, are given more time together. And the reunion between Odysseus' fellow king, and his wife Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world, blamed for starting the war after a Trojan prince spirited her away, has always felt too neatly resolved in the poem. Nolan complicated complicates it. And in a twist, Lupita Nyong'o also plays Helen's sister, whose marriage to Menelaus's brother is, to put it mildly, acrimonious. So, Lupita Nyong'o, the actress, is going to play the most beautiful woman in the world, and the face that launched 1,000 ships, the catalyst for the Trojan War. And in case you need a visual, we'll put it up on the screen. On the left, you have Helen from the 2004 movie Troy. On the right, you have Lupita Nyong'o. Now, if somebody woke up in a coma after 20 years and they wanted an update on what's happened to America in those 2 decades, you could simply show them this side-by-side comparison. They'd probably conclude that we've been conquered by Africa somehow, which maybe isn't too far from the truth. Now, Lupita Nyong'o is, as you can kind of tell, from Kenya. It makes no historical sense whatsoever to cast a sub-Saharan African in this role. I mean, you might as well make Helen of Troy Chinese. You might as well put her in an igloo and make her an Eskimo. It is an absurd casting choice that totally breaks the immersion of the film. So why would Nolan do this? Were there no white actresses available for the role? Well, he would do this because he knows that he would be called racist if he gave the most beautiful woman in the world role to a white woman. It really is that simple. Nolan is technically talented, but a coward. He's too afraid to do anything that even slightly challenges the spirit of the age. Which is why, although he's a good artist, he'll never be a great one. Being a great artist requires some amount of moral courage. He doesn't have any. Now, to be clear, in the Iliad and the Odyssey, Homer describes Helen as fair-haired, fair-faced, and white-armed. There's no dispute that she's a very attractive white woman. Which again makes sense because this is a Greek poem. By casting a black woman as Helen, once again, Nolan is transforming a heroic epic into a farce. He's going out of his way to turn a key pillar of the Western canon into a mockery. The same reason, by the way, that the recent Snow White film cast a South American woman in the title role, because Snow White is canonically, of course, white. Obviously, it's right there in the name. And but the filmmakers knew that Snow White is supposed to be the prettiest girl in the kingdom, the fairest of them all, and so they felt compelled to give the role to a brown woman. I mean, certainly they couldn't imply that a white woman is beautiful, least of all the most beautiful, and that's the unofficial rule that Nolan is obeying here. There are also official rules he's arguably obeying. Per Oscar policy, there needs to be a certain amount of diversity in lead characters, so the theory is that Nolan added black characters in order to qualify for the Oscars, but I'm not sold on that idea, because if you read the Oscars criteria, there's plenty of other DEI initiatives that he could have resorted to. Could have hired black producers, for example, or started a training camp for black actors, or, whatever. Now, of course, we will be told, and are being told, that race-swapping characters in the Odyssey, casting it in a way so that the demographic makeup of Greece in, 1200 BC looks like the demographic makeup of Brooklyn in 2026 AD, we'll be told it doesn't matter, because it's just a movie, right? It's pretend. But we all know that if a major Hollywood studio made a film set in Africa featuring iconic African characters and then cast white people in some of the key roles, none of the people defending the Odyssey casting would be nearly as forgiving. In fact, they'd literally be protesting in the street. And if you can imagine this, imagine if the role of the most beautiful woman in Africa was given to a white lady. Okay, what if they handed that spot to, I don't know, Sydney Sweeney? There would actually be riots. I mean, they would show up to the movie studio with Molotov cocktails. They would go full Luigi Mangione on Universal Pictures executives. They would. And we all know that's the case. And yet, when race swaps go the other direction, we're told it's our obligation to just accept it without complaint.
That's right. Yeah.
By the way, one Hollywood actor who's been very outspoken against race-swapping characters in films is John Leguizamo. Leguizamo is Hispanic and has insisted publicly many times on the record that Hispanic characters in films should only be played by Hispanic actors. But know, the good news is that he's consistent because he also, I'll say for to his credit, he spoke out about the Odyssey and said that only white people of Greek descent should be featured in the film. I'm just kidding, of course. John Leguizamo is in the Odyssey playing a Greek character himself.
I was about to say, did he really? I was like, no, I don't think he did. You're lying.
So, rules for thee, not rules for me. Another clue that Nolan's goal is
I was about to say, yeah, no, he
the
didn't.
Odyssey
No, he
than to
didn't.
interpret it is that the corporate press is already running a full-on PR campaign for Nolan's film several months before it comes out. Time magazine ran this cover story glorifying Nolan. But if you actually read the story, it's not hard to see that Nolan and his team have absolutely no idea what they're doing. Here's one of the more remarkable parts. Quote, Nolan instructed composer Ludwig Göransson not to use...
We're going to ride to Knoxville to take Frank out for supper and take him some of that ice cream I made yesterday.
Ooh.
So,
Ice cream you made yesterday?
I made some strawberry ice cream.
Before you take that, may I have some?
Sure.
Please? I'm in the middle of a game. I kind of can't leave. Well, I guess I could leave for like a minute on this game, but I mean, I really, if I leave, I can die.
No, I don't want you to die. But anyway, we'll be coming back. I don't know if we'll be back in time to get her at a good time or not.
Well, just call Ariana and let her know.
Huh?
Just call Ariana and let her know. It's the last week of school. I mean, it's not like... Where did you get in here? Ice cream, yes. Nice. Frankie. Nice. No! Run! Stupid deer. Out of here. Shoot. Free. Yeah. No! 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 I at least I revived. Dumb. Just try to fish. That was dumb. That was extra dumb. Okay. Bro. Just try to fish, man. The hell? Stupid freaking killing me, man. That bunny just thumping. What the heck is that? It was like there's a frog in there, that's what it is.
There's an orchestra in the score, if only to subvert expectations for a sword and sandals film. It's not like the orchestra existed back then, says Goranson. It was a challenge and also an opening to try to make something unique. Instead, he rented 35 bronze gongs of varied sizes, experimented, recorded them with synths, and began sending the director songs. Nolan also put rapper Travis Scott in the film as a bard. I cast him because I wanted to nod towards the idea that this story has been handed down as oral poetry, which is analogous to rap. So there's a lot to think about here. First of all, he's saying they won't include an orchestra in the score because the orchestra supposedly didn't exist back then. But in the same breath, he says they rented 35 bronze gongs and recorded them with synths. Now, admittedly, again, I'm not an expert. I didn't study ancient Greece in college. In fact, I didn't study anything in college because I didn't go to college. But I'm pretty confident that if the Greeks didn't have orchestras, then they also probably didn't have synths. So what exactly is the rationale for having synths in the score? I'm also fairly certain that Bronze Age people didn't have IMAX cameras or 3D printed armor or boom mics or any of the other technology they're using in this film. So this is totally incoherent. Not to mention, again, he's basing this film on a modernized translation already and using modernized language and dialogue, where people say things like dad and let's go. But somehow Time magazine printed this without anybody noticing that it sounded a little odd. And the worst part is Nolan saying that he cast the rapper Travis Scott as a bard because, quote, I wanted to nod towards the idea that the story has been handed down as oral poetry, which is analogous to rap. Yes, Homer's Odyssey, because it was handed down as oral poetry, is analogous to rap. Never mind the fact that, unlike Homer's Odyssey, rap music is not handed down through generations by many different performers. Rappers sing a song and they record the finalized version of it in a studio, and then it exists in the. It's not handed down. It's like, here's the recording of the song. Other than the fact that the human voice is involved in both of these concepts, there's really no meaningful similarity. We know about old rap songs because we have the original recordings. Okay, it's not like your grandmother is sitting you down and reciting the oral tradition of Back That Ass Up by Juvenile. That's not how it works. I don't know, maybe you have a strange Thanksgiving tradition in your house. That's not how it works in my house. Instead, she can put the song on and we can enjoy and listen as a family. Now, there are plenty of other important differences, too, starting with the fact that the lyrics to one of Travis Scott's biggest songs goes like this. Just reading the lyrics now. Yeah, pass the dogs a celly, sending texts ain't sending kites. Yeah, he said, keep that on lock. I said, you know that stife, it's absolute, I'm back, reboot, Lafari to Jamba Juice. Now, my only point is that doesn't exactly measure up to an ancient, timeless epic. You know, if this were the kind of oral tradition handed down from our ancestors, we would have to assume that our ancestors were all retarded. In fact, if that qualified as timeless poetry to be handed down through the generations, we we would really, I don't mean to exaggerate, have no choice but to collectively throw ourselves into a volcano and just put a merciful end to the human race entirely. So the reasoning doesn't make any sense. It makes about as much sense as casting Ellen/Elliot Page in the film, playing a man, even though she's a woman. And, you know, it's true that they didn't have orchestras in ancient Greece, but they did have orchestras, like, for the last 400 years at least. On the other hand, we've had transgenderism for, like, 400 seconds. I'd say the latter is a lot more anachronistic than the former. And there are reports online that suggest that Paige is playing the legendary mythical warrior Achilles, and I'm not sure if that's true or not. That's what everyone's saying. I don't know if it's true. If it is, then it's going to be the single worst casting choice ever made in the history of Hollywood. Unless Nolan is changing the story so that the Achilles heel is misgendering. Unless that's the case, it won't make any sense. But no matter who she plays, we can be sure that it will be a male character. So we know that it's terrible casting regardless. But before I beat this point any further and elaborate on my argument that Hollywood is trying to intentionally subvert the classics, I did want to present this alternative theory, which I find interesting. It's not really an alternative theory exactly. It's the theory that helps to maybe explain some of what we're seeing here. And in this theory, Christopher Nolan isn't necessarily tanking the Odyssey on purpose. I mean, after all, he's the same guy who made The Dark Knight Rises, where the rich guy kills the socialist revolutionaries. Instead, the theory is that Nolan is only good at making a specific kind of movie, and the Odyssey is out of his depth. This is from a filmmaker named Elaine Astrick. It's a really insightful point, so I want to read it in its entirety. And here's what he says, quote, "I think I finally understand what's wrong with Nolan. His universe is adverse to myth. It is made entirely of causality, and causality alone. He may be the most gifted filmmaker working in big-budget Hollywood today, but he's going to crash on myth the way that sailors crashed on the rocks below the Sirens. The tell is in a detail Nolan offers with obvious pride. He found a solution to what he saw as a narrative problem. Why would the Trojans believe the horse was empty and drag it inside their city? His answer is to make the horse half submerged, sinking into the sea so the Trojans would rescue it rather than accept it as a gift. It's a solution to a problem that never was one because it's a myth. The Trojans bring the horse inside because it's a gift and it has wheels. The poet tells you something plainly impossible with the same tone he used to describe the sunrise. And in doing so, he's signaling that the level of reality goes beyond mere causality and exists on other levels. He's the kind of guy who would explain that Santa can fit through the chimney because he designed it wide enough from the start, using proper construction methods and reliable materials. Then explain how the reindeer are fed to sustain that much effort in a single night. How Santa elaborated a clever logistics route to deliver the gifts on time." So he has a point here, undoubtedly. Think about, for example, how George Lucas destroyed Star Wars. Again, not exactly a Star Wars expert myself, but in the original trilogy, the Force was a mysterious, mystical power that was never fully explained. You kind of use your imagination and fill in the blanks. But in the prequels, Lucas came up with a scientific explanation for the Force. And basically, it's like some people had midichlorians, or however they pronounce it. And the midichlorians in their cells gave them magic power. So this was a disastrous change because it removed all the mythology, all of the intrigue behind the Force. The Force went from something ineffable and mysterious to like a biological mutation like cancer.
Oh, fuck.
Except good, I guess. Now, was it more rational from a technical perspective? Sort of, I guess, but it ruined one of the core aspects of the original film. The Force didn't need to be rational. Like, Star Wars is a story about spacemen running around and fighting each other with laser swords. We don't need a rationalistic, materialistic explanation for every aspect of it. Now, modern mainstream filmmakers are, for the most part, allergic to anything mystical or supernatural or mythological. They have to filter everything through a materialist lens because that's the lens by which they see the world. This is what makes them especially ill-suited to make movies set in ancient times. You know, the whole beauty of filmmaking is that it allows the audience to see the world through the eyes of its central characters. But seeing the world through the eyes of ancient people means seeing a world steeped in myth and mysticism. because that is the world that they perceive. The only major director working today who understands that is not Christopher Nolan, but Robert Eggers. In the Northman, which is one of the only good historical films of the last quarter century, Eggers tells the story from the perspective of a Viking in the 10th century. That's why some people who watched the movie didn't really like it, I think because they didn't quite understand what Robert Eggers was doing. And the movie, it's very violent and epic, and it is, grim in a lot of ways, but it's also kind of trippy. It's in a way people weren't expecting. And why is that? Well, because he's telling the story from the perspective of these people who lived in the 10th century. He's respecting the mysticism of the ancients, trying to capture their worldview, not his own, right? Capture their worldview. Theirs, not his. Now, most modern filmmakers, like Nolan, are way too literal in their thinking. There's nothing romantic, nothing mystical, nothing mythological in their view of the world. They can't handle historical epics because our ancestors lived in a world that is so totally alien to the world these filmmakers perceive. So arguably that's the problem here. Maybe Nolan doesn't understand how to tell the story. Maybe all the race swaps and all the incoherent details are part of some ill-advised larger effort to connect the dots that don't need to be connected. Now, it's hard to say because the movie's not out yet. There's a growing divide in higher education right now. Some schools seem focused almost entirely on prestige, amenities, and charging as much tuition as humanly possible. Meanwhile, students and parents are left wondering whether the degree will actually lead anywhere meaningful afterward. Grand Canyon University has taken a different approach. GCU is an affordable, private, nonprofit Christian university based in Phoenix, Arizona. It's built around the idea that education should prepare students for real life. That means academically rigorous programs connected to actual careers and a university experience that won't leave students stuck with debt or directionless. And unlike a lot of schools raising costs year after year, GCU has kept tuition the same on its traditional campus for the past 17 years. They've also invested heavily into building a modern campus experience. Most of GCU's facilities have been built in just the last decade. The university now serves more than 132,000 students across hundreds of degree programs. But most importantly, GCU hasn't abandoned the value side of education. They're grounded in Christian truth and focused on developing graduates who lead with integrity, serve others, and contribute meaningfully to their communities. That's the kind of higher education more students are looking for right now. Find your purpose at GCU, private, Christian, affordable, nonprofit. Visit gcu.edu to learn more. There are certain moments in life you never really forget. My wife and I will never forget hearing our children's heartbeats for the first time. It's one of those experiences that you can talk about, but unless you've actually lived it, it's hard to fully describe. It's like holding your child for the first time. Something changes in you instantly. Suddenly this little person becomes completely real. These are moments that really matter. For many mothers facing unplanned pregnancies, seeing an ultrasound and hearing that heartbeat can completely change the direction of their lives. That's why Preborn exists. Preborn helps provide ultrasounds to women who are scared, overwhelmed, and often feeling completely alone. And when a mother sees her baby on ultrasound and hears the heartbeat, it doubles the likelihood that she will choose life. Just $28 helps provide one ultrasound. $140 reaches 5 mothers, and support continues after that, too. Mothers receive help with counseling, maternity care, baby clothes, diapers, and resources that they need to move forward with confidence. This is one of the most direct ways you can help both mothers and their children. And if you're a business owner, consider making a larger tax-deductible donation. A gift of $1,000, $2,000, $10,000, even $15,000 can help sponsor an ultrasound machine for clinics serving women in need, helping to save lives for years to come. Go to preborn.com/Walsh. That's preborn.com/Walsh. Whatever theory explains all this, the fact is that many other directors and other studios are doing the same thing Nolan is doing. Obviously, they're taking a hatchet to classic works of literature. They're inverting the themes and ruining the characters. Animal Farm from Angel Studios is one of the most recent examples. As we all know, Orwell's Animal Farm was an allegory about communism, but the Angel Studios version makes capitalism into the villain. This is from Tim Pool, who saw the film. Quote, "The new Animal Farm is about happy animals sold off after a farmer can't pay his mortgage. One pig gets in credit card debt and agrees to sell the farm in a private equity deal to Elon Musk's mom, who then builds a hydroelectric dam on the property so the animals rebel and plant explosives, which blow up the dam, killing all her employees. Not a single analog or comment on Marxism, let alone communism." Now, to his credit, Tim turned down an offer from Angel Studios to promote this film. recognize that it's an absurd pro-communist adaptation, so we called it out. Instead of making a new film with a new title, they felt they had to bastardize Animal Farm. Like, if you just want to make a dumb movie about barn animals, you can do that. Right? You could just make a movie, call it The Barnyard or whatever. And then it would only be stacked up against the pantheon of children's movies about barn animals, where it would still fall well short of the classics of the genre, like Babe and Charlotte's Web. But instead, they are cynically using the name of one of the most important and iconic works of 20th century literature. Now, in their defense, Angel Studios insist that they didn't have any creative control over the film. They're just the distributor. But frankly, and I say this as someone who likes Angel Studios, that is not much of a defense. I mean, it's a bit like saying, well, I didn't create the crack cocaine, I just shipped it to millions of people. It's a surprising development because Angel has done some really powerful and important work, most notably Sound of Freedom, which was about child sex trafficking. And that's why it's so bewildering that in Animal Farm, Seth Rogen openly mocks Sound of Freedom. Watch.
Come on. Hey, where'd this come from? It's leftovers. It'll go to waste. You should have this for all your hard work.
No. Thank you, but it's supposed to be shared equally.
There is no supposed to anymore, okay? We're free. For example, I'm about to fart right now. This is the sound of freedom.
Thanks, Napoleon. Nice to be appreciated, but...
Just enjoy the milk, kid. And also, like, don't worry. You know, it's our little secret.
Now, first of all, even aside from the fact that this Animal Farm adaptation destroys the core message of the book, tears away Orwell's critique of communism, empties the story of its meaning, and wears it like a skin suit, even aside from all that, again, the tone and look and feel of the film just aren't right. You know, Nolan took something grand and sweeping and made it grim and dark. This movie takes something grim and dark and makes it childish and crass. Like it's animated with all the artistic care and vision of a Paw Patrol episode. And instead of dealing with the heady themes of Orwell's book, instead they've elected to, make fart jokes. Now, on top of that, it's openly mocking Angel Studios' top film, even though Angel Studios distributes the film. Now, to be clear, Seth Rogen wasn't the only insufferable leftist to work on this thing. Here's another.
At the heart of every genocide is dehumanization. That is the beginning. When we begin, and I know we're talking about animals here, but when we stop seeing our fellow citizens as human, then we can commit violence against them with impunity, take away their rights. I think what we've seen over the past 6 years with trans people is a really good example of that. It's clear that it's never been about sports. It's never been about protecting women or children. If they wanted to protect women or children,
100%.
Indict the Epstein, people in the Epstein files. We know who they are, but they're not doing that. So that was all a pretext to scapegoat trans people, to dehumanize us and put us in an excluded category so that we can take away, so they can take away our rights. Legislate us out of existence. We're seeing that happen.
Is there anyone who can seriously argue that Hollywood's output has gotten better ever since they began recruiting actors and directors and writers like that guy? Has there been a single film that's been improved by shoehorning in some DEI casting and overt leftist political messaging? Certainly none of the historical epics have improved. I mean, the genre has basically disappeared, and the few attempts that have been made have been, unintentionally farcical. That's a big deal because the historical epic is one of the most important genres of storytelling. It has been for literally thousands of years. When you watch one of those films done right, you learn valuable lessons about the way the world used to work, the obstacles that great men had to overcome. You see the world through the lens of our ancestors, which is a very valuable thing. But it just doesn't exist anymore. I'd argue that the last truly great historical epic, with the exception of The Northman, was Master and Commander, which came out in 2003. And that film featured great actors and filmmakers at the top of their game, telling a heroic and exciting story with real moral and dramatic weight. No concern at all for diverse representation, quote unquote, or DEI. You leave the film feeling enthralled, and also like you just received a history lesson. Very few films over the past quarter century have even come close to that. Apocalypto in 2006 was masterfully done. The Northman is already mentioned. And in terms of historical films that were actually well made and respected the time period they portray, that's pretty much it. This is a massive critical void in America's culture. At some level, I can understand why lesser-known directors aren't trying to correct the problem. They know their careers would be destroyed if they tried. But Christopher Nolan, like Angel Studios, is not going to go bankrupt anytime soon. He's got more money than he can possibly spend. No one in the industry can take him down. He's has total financial and artistic freedom to make whatever he wants. He could have made the first meaningful historical epic in decades. One that didn't resemble every other bog standard assembly line production from every other director. Could have done that. Instead, we get Zendaya. We get Black Helen. We get dialogue that sits comfortably at a 4th grade reading level. Was Christopher Nolan a great director? Well, yes, at one point I think he was. Everyone knows that. What's unclear, the question we may never get an answer to, is why he decided to torch his own legacy in a doomed effort to destroy homes. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Martin Luther King Jr. is an American icon, widely considered one of the greatest Americans who ever lived. A man who had a vision for a colorblind society, a post-racial America. He had a dream, just not the dream we thought it was. Were his true aims a colorblind society or something far more radical? Who bankrolled him? What unfolded behind the scenes in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963? Was civil disobedience actually peaceful?
No,
We wanted to show you a clip of the I Have a Dream speech, but according to our lawyers, we can't. In fact, King's family has made a lot of money suing media outlets. They want to silence critics like us. What they're doing makes it very difficult to judge Martin Luther King Jr. not by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. Is America today stronger, more unified, and racially equal than before King's rise? These questions demand answers, and as Americans, we are entitled to a full accounting of the civil rights movement and its consequences. King's movement fundamentally transformed our country and our system of government.
I speak as a citizen of the world. Each day the war goes on, the hatred increases, though the cause of evil prospers.
The first part of our 2-part special on the civil rights movement, A New Constitution, available now on Daily Wire Plus.
Why are you still here? You don't have anything left to trade. Alexa, make an announcement.
What would you like to announce?
Mom, are you still here? Did you forget me?
Announcing on all devices. From Ryan. Mom, are you still here? Did you forget me?
Poison armor. I have thorn armor, but that's poison armor. Oh, I got all that for poison armor. And I got thorn armor. That's cool. Frog egg. Egg basket. Oh. Bro. I didn't know I could get you down here. No. I'm gonna revive myself down here. Not enough gems, really. 13. Bro. I don't have enough. I got a ton of gems. How many do I have? I have quite a few. Oh, I need 16 and 13. Damn. But I needed 16 gems to let that down, bro. I didn't know I could get me down there. Unless I didn't. I thought you were safe down there. Shit.
There is a beast lurking amongst our society. It's aggressive. It's argumentative. And most of all, it wants to speak to the manager. Its name is
Karen.
Unlike other humans, Karens aren't able to regulate their behavior. Exhibit A, Your Honor, when this Karen visited a Mexican restaurant in Las Vegas and all hell broke loose. This is a movie I like to call The Fat and the Furious. But rest assured, this hungry hippo soon got an XL serving of instant karma.
Wow.
Hasta la vista, Senora Karen. Without context, I'm curious about what actually started all this. Did they accidentally give her a salad or something? After receiving the wrong order from McDonald's, Ohio woman Brittany Price waited over 30 minutes for a resolution to no avail. And though it's understandable that her patience had worn thin, what she did next was way out of line. But after hurling food at the manager, Nashawanda Johnson, this Karen was about to learn the meaning of an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. What you just saw was a blender to the face. Nashawanda's shot left Brittany with a severely bust-up nose and a shattered cheekbone. Nashawanda was, of course, fired from her position, and in 2020, Brittany began legal proceedings to sue McDonald's for at least $225,000 in damages. It was eventually settled out of court, but with
With that kind of compensation, I'll happily take a blender to the face, please. Our next Karen was such a bad person that she ended up behind bars. It was 2021, and Texas citizen Amanda Nicole Martinez ordered some soup to go from the Mexican restaurant Sol de Jalisco. Trouble was that the soup was allegedly so hot that it had melted the lid of its container. However, rather than complaining in a dignified manner, Amanda pulled a move no one saw coming.
Burned.
This
The
soup
face.
is piping hot. I know. I'll throw it in the face of the cashier. Worse yet, a screenshot of a Facebook status showed Amanda explaining how she had no regrets about the situation and is confident she'll get away with it. That, of course, was posted before she got arrested and charged with assault and causing bodily injury, resulting in an $800 fine, 6 days of jail on work
Is that
release,
all?
and 15 months of
Could've
deferred probation.
scarred her for life.
Person getting away with a light sentence. Well, at the very least, she needs to be put away indefinitely for those eyebrows. This next Karen was furious when she
Could've scarred
spotted
that
a
girl for life.
neighbor proudly flying the Black Lives Matter flag. To that, she aggressively yelled, "White Lives Matter," and continued to berate the man for about 30 minutes. With no end in sight, the fella decided to, quite literally, clean up this Karen's act.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Come on, girl. Oh my God.
You're gonna lose that battle.
Okay, now I think maybe we should call somebody. Okay?
Wait, what does this remind me of? The police were eventually called, but no charges were filed. The embarrassment of her falling pathetically multiple times and failing to get up is punishment enough, I think. Who knew Mrs. Trunchbull's kryptonite was a shower? Patience is a feature Karens don't typically come with downloaded to their hard drive. So you can bet that when this Karen was asked to park up and wait for her McDonald's drive-thru order, she wasn't happy.
What's your name?
No, I'm gonna record you too.
Go ahead.
That's
I
fine.
don't work here.
Alright, can you pull up straight ahead?
She's being really rude.
Okay. Can you
I ordered the large. Wait, I want to talk to the manager.
That's why I
Are you the
give it to
manager?
you in an A bag so it
You're
don't
the manager?
fall over. It's full.
Are you the manager?
Literally dump it out every time.
Are you the manager?
No, you are the manager.
I just want to get the large. I don't want her to touch it.
Can you pull?
Can I know what I'm waiting for up front?
Can you please? You're waiting on fries. Do you mind
Yes.
pulling up straight ahead?
Can you give me new fries to the top, please?
Can you pull up straight ahead?
Yeah. Can you answer my question?
Can you pull up straight ahead?
Yeah. Can you answer my question?
Can you pull up straight
What
ahead?
am I waiting for up there?
After arguing with the managers for a few moments, this feisty Karen still refused to pull up and wait for her order. And so it was only fair that this Karen met her karma.
Okay. So here's your money back for your large fry. We're not serving you here no more. Okay. Have a good day.
Yeah. After I talk to the owner.
After she talks to the owner of McDonald's, Ronald McDonald is currently in an important meeting, ma'am, but I can put you through to one of the 700 million shareholders. Back in 2014, police were called to a Dollar General store after there were reports of a mad Karen wrecking the place. Why, you ask? Well, according to the store clerk, Karen was actually a new employee who'd been promptly fired for not waking up in time for her shift. Enraged that her sloppy behavior had actual consequences, Snoozy Susie furiously waddled down to the store and wreaked havoc.
Came in here and she says, what's corporate's number? I said, 3. And she's, I'm calling every day. I said, just calm down. And she says, who the do you think you are? She started throwing me around, went out there and throwing that shit around. And just, if I ever see you outside here, I'm gonna kick your ass.
Shaken by the encounter, the store clerk pressed charges and then sent the sheriff on his merry way to seize the crazed Karen. Here's how that went down.
Oh.
Hi, what's going on?
Nothing.
What happened to Dollar General?
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot?
She's and she deserved to know it.
Okay.
And I went down and told her that.
Okay. Did you throw some stuff around?
Some clothes on the ground, yeah.
Okay. Looked like a lot more than clothes.
No, she can clean it up. She deserves it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're going to be placed under arrest.
Why?
Disorderly conduct and criminal damage.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Smug and completely unremorseful, Karen was about to learn her lesson the hard way.
Yep. Couldn't turn your hands around back.
I need to get... Devin?
Nope. We're not playing this. We're not playing.
I was telling my husband.
Okay.
Get your hands off of me.
No, that's not how it works.
Get your
That's not how it works. Yes, Stephanie. Stop.
You're texting. Stop. What are you doing to her? I'm on my glass and mother. God, my face is hurting. My arms are hurting. Stop. Your hurt is hurting. Stop. You're scaring my son. Well, you shouldn't have went your ass down there. Well, she shouldn't have. I don't give a... You shouldn't have went down there to that job is not a job good enough for you. That job was good enough. She's the one who you over, Mom. You should never get down there. Didn't you do this?
You know it's bad when your own mom is cheering on your arrest. But
You shouldn't have
now
done
all
that,
puffed up,
stupid
Karen decided
fuck.
to flip the narrative, even going as far as to portray herself as the misunderstood victim in all this.
Just hear me out. Just let me talk for a second, please. I just need to vent. How would you feel if you were offered a job and then she texted you at 8:25 this morning when you were still asleep and you get up and text her back and she was like, you no longer have that job because you didn't text me back right away. I didn't think you were interested. I took everything to her and she completely f***ed me over because I wasn't awake to text her back. So yes, I did go a little crazy, but that really f***ed me off.
I get it, but there was so many different ways this could have went.
Then I blacked out, okay? I got off and I blacked out. I didn't threaten her. I didn't touch her. I threw some on the ground. That's it. Because it felt really good to know that she is the only one there and she has to clean it up. Because how the fuck are you going to do that to somebody? You don't just hire somebody and then a day before they start, you're like, oh, I hired somebody else. You don't do that. Right? Like, I know I could have handled it better and I had a week left. When I blacked out, it just really upset me.
It's alright.
No, it's not.
I mean, it's all part of the job.
I've acted like that. I've never acted like that.
I've never acted like that? Yeah, I highly doubt that. It's pretty clear that this Karen was only sorry she got caught. And had she not been remanded, Lord knows she would have probably continued being an obnoxiously entitled menace to society. In the end, she was charged with both criminal damage and disorderly conduct. To quote her own words,
she deserves it.
We've all felt the dreaded panic of losing our phone. These days it can feel like losing a limb. Whilst at Walmart, this Karen's son lost his phone. After using the Find My iPhone feature to track the phone's location, Officer Karen insisted it was following another shopper and that he had therefore stolen it.
Okay, everybody watching this lady on the phone. She accused me of stealing her son's phone. Followed me outside the store. First, I am in the store. As soon as her son happened to lose her phone, I guess I was around looking for blinds and she started looking at it. And I know I'm black with tattoos, so she automatically assumed I had it. Says location, says it's me. I have no on her son's phone, but she followed me outside of Walmart. I'm here in Moreno Valley. She came looking for location, but it's right by my car. She runs up to me and says, excuse me, you have my son's phone? I pull my phone out and tell her I do not, as well as my money and my ID, and tell her who I am and I do not steal. And she continues. She told me the only reason I'm not leaving is because I don't have a phone. That's why I'm not leaving. You understand I'm waiting, right? Because you're wrong.
Let's fix this. We'll wait until the police are here. You said it yourself.
What will happen when you're wrong? What happens? What do I get? Just an apology?
Sure.
That's not good.
No, we're staying here until you give me my phone because it marks that you're here.
I don't have a phone.
No.
Man, you're really crazy. You're following me now.
Now I am. Because that phone
A sorry is not good enough. A sorry person isn't good enough for me.
And now I am accusing you. You said you were staying here because you have nothing to
You're accusing me. Thank you.
I don't think it takes a courtroom judge to figure out that this man is clearly innocent. However, in the court of Karen, she wasn't buying it. In fact, Karen was so confident this man was guilty, she returned to the store and asked them to call the cops.
How you doing, ma'am? She accused me of stealing a phone, man. She ran after me. First it was happening in the store, man. It was kind of by me when I went to the office. I heard her say, "Where's your phone?" I seen a little boy walk over to the sister, man. I'm looking for blinds for my family in the house. runs after me, recording right now, just so you know.
No,
She
you
runs
can't record,
after me.
unfortunately.
Well, this is for my safety.
Yeah,
She
yeah, yeah.
runs after me. She runs after me. Says, "You have my son's phone." And then I tell her, right? Yeah. And then I tell her, right? I don't have a phone. I pull my wallet out. I show her I don't need to steal anything at all.